Sunday, and we are heading about an hour and 20 minutes north to the central Jersey area, and we're going somewhere that I've wanted to visit for a while, Grounds for Sculpture. We went there, maybe 3 years ago?
Yeah, I think so.
I think it was about 3 years ago. And we didn't really know what it was, we just heard that it was a nice place to go to. So now I'm excited because this time we actually know what to expect. And it's just a very fun, whimsical kind of atmosphere where you get to be outside and it's a beautiful day. So you get to enjoy nature, but you also get to soak in some art and culture. And they have a great cafe on the ground. Let's talk about the real way that this trip got planned was that Pat read that this place up in central Jersey was voted as having the best ice cream in New Jersey. And we were like, hey, that's close to Grounds for Sculpture, so there's a good reason to go. So we'll be hopefully getting ice cream later too.
So don't let the weight of the world slow you down. And if you search for the meaning of life, it won't be found. So take your insecurities and leave them all behind. Let's learn to make the most of our time.
We took the back roads so that we could enjoy a nice drive through the Pine Barrens, and we went past what are called the pygmy pines. It's a unique area where the trees only grow about 5 feet tall.
Sold out.
Make sure if you're going to visit Grounds for Sculpture that you buy your tickets ahead of time because they do sell out.
Oh, hi, sir. I got it right here.
Good to go, park to your left.
Okay, thank you, sir.
We came around to the back of the building, and the nice thing is if you go around the building, there's way more parking back here, and you can already start to see the sculptures. Right from the beginning, you can see that this is not your average experience going to a museum. It's much more interactive. Grounds for Sculpture was built on an old racetrack that they repurposed. And as you enter the visitor center, you're going to go through the cafe, which is one of our favorite parts about visiting. It has an outdoor seating area right next to a pond, and you can get some pastries and coffee or a sandwich if you're looking for something a little bit more substantial. But it's a great way to start your visit. As you come out of the cafe, you go directly to another larger-than-life sculpture. This is the theme that you're going to see throughout the grounds. It's a mixture of art and nature with a very whimsical take. There's a person climbing up the side of the building there and a sea monster coming out of the pond. There are beautifully maintained gardens with unique plants and landscaping that encourages you to explore what's around the next corner because you never know what you're going to find or where there's going to be a hidden sculpture. Even if you don't enjoy the traditional museum experience, Grounds for Sculpture brings a completely different way of experiencing art. You can walk around it, you can touch it, and it's constantly changing as the light of the day changes and as the season changes. Exploring Grounds for Sculpture is just as much about soaking in the nature as it is about experiencing the art.
Oh, it's looking for food.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool.
Can I pet it? Is it like a petting zoo? We'll find out. There's another one over there. A lot of them.
Yeah. Oh, they're swarming.
Oh god.
I think I have duty. Everywhere you look, there's this thoughtful combination of nature and art. One of the main ideas of Grounds for Sculpture is the experience of feeling like you are in famous works of art. And here we are walking over Monet's bridge, making our way over to the pond that shows some artists at work. And this is where it gets very clever. You have to experience these exhibits from different angles to really appreciate Here's an artist who is painting a scene that is out in front of you, painting another artist who is also looking at the same scene. You can see their canvases and the angles that they're looking at this painting from. It just makes it such a more immersive experience to see the subject that they are painting in 3 dimensions and then observing their canvas. Right next to this pond is the French restaurant, and I hope we get to eat here the next time that we go. What we didn't know is that if you want to get a picnic, you can actually pick up a bag and then go find a spot to eat in the gardens. They really pack in the sculptures here. I mean, you don't have to walk very far to see a whole bunch of stuff. It's everywhere. There are over 400 sculptures and works of art found throughout the gardens and the grounds. Some are very large, like this wood carved by chainsaw, and some of the smaller ones can be found at the indoor galleries that we're going to visit later. But when you're walking around the grounds, there are so many different trails, paths, tunnels, bridges, that you feel like you are exploring. It really brings up this sense of curiosity to find out what you are going to come across next and where there's going to be a little hidden piece of art or nature.
Feels like a wave. Like you're inside a wave.
It's so neat. Yeah, like you're in the curl.
Mm-hmm.
So many choices. I feel like you could wander around here for hours.
Yeah. I always see these types of flowers. I always think of Jurassic Park.
It does look like Jurassic Park. Oh, the ferns.
Yeah.
I think they're sword ferns.
And it doesn't help with this cage-looking thing.
You think a raptor's gonna pop out?
Clever
Could.
girl.
This really looks like Jurassic Park. There are many of these life-size sculptures throughout the gardens, and as you come around the corner, sometimes for a second your brain isn't sure if it's a real person standing there or if it's a sculpture. It's so neat. You can see like what he's actually painting out there. The whole scene. So clever. Is he alright? As we came around to the center of the gardens, we found one of my favorite sculptures, this very modern metal sculpture that is positioned above a pond, and the water reflection gives this interesting perspective to be able to see the shape from above and below. And as the light changes during the day, the experience of the sculpture really changes. You joining in? It's like a famous painting. This is a 3D sculptural representation of a famous painting called The Dream by Henry Rousseau, created by Seward Johnson. And as we were leaving this area, there are some very creepy eyes peering out from the bamboo. As we made our way through the main garden, we headed towards some of the buildings where they have a little bit more of a traditional museum kind of experience. This is where some of the more delicate pieces are kept indoors, so they have more protection, and this is where you're definitely not supposed to touch anything. We enjoyed this exhibit, which was different from the last time that we were here. It was an artist who was using metal and some different composite acrylics to play around with light as another element in the sculpture. It's the intangible part of the sculpture that transforms your experience as the day changes. After leaving the indoor exhibits, we went over to what used to be a cafe area with some tables and chairs set up in this beautiful area of trees. And this time the cafe was closed, but since there were fewer people over here, we actually got to see the peacocks. This area is known as the Peacock Run, and they like to hang out on top of this wooden structure as you enter the area, so you get a pretty up-close view. They just all hang out up there? Oh my gosh. That's so neat.
Chill for a little bit?
Yeah. The last time that we were here, this cafe was open and it was so nice. They had a bunch of different like food and coffee and stuff that you could get outside. So unfortunately the cafe hasn't opened again, but it's still such a nice place to sit.
Yeah.
These trees are awesome. It's nice and shady.
It's a very unique property. It's different from Longwood, but it has its own charm to it, I guess.
I feel like it's more interactive.
Yeah, definitely.
Because at Longwood you're looking at plants and you can walk through them, but you're very much looking at them, where here it's like you're encouraged to walk through the sculpture or touch the sculpture. That's so different than the normal way that we see art. We're always supposed to like look and not touch.
Yeah. But and even in this section here, there's still what used to be the cafe. I guess hopefully in the future that'll come back. But even here, there's sculptures all around you. You're eating with it, you know.
Pretty much everywhere. They really like weave them in. You go around a corner and there's something there that kind of surprises you. So it makes it just like fun.
Well, it's a bit of a brain teaser or something, like, because you come around a corner and you don't know if it's real or not. You give it a second and you're like, oh, it's a person. Okay, that's real.
It's real at first. You're like, ah. The one point we were touching this big metal sculpture because the texture was just so neat, and you have to kind of tell yourself like it's okay to walk around it and to touch it. And one of the volunteers walked up behind us and asked us if we wanted information, and at first I kind of jumped. I was like, oh no, I'm gonna get in trouble for touching this sculpture, but it was fine, and he actually wanted to tell us about how it was made, and that was so interesting because it was recycled materials.
Yeah.
Very neat. Thanks for coming along on this trip with us to visit Grounds for Sculpture. We have more to show you from the gardens in part 2, and then we are going to head into Princeton and have a really unique experience getting ice cream in the center of Princeton. So I hope that you will subscribe and leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and then we'll see you in the next one.
Well, you worried about you and me, the injustice, the next president to be, the news and what you hear, your career. It's time for you to face those fears, and it's all fair to be aware, and I'll be there, so don't be scared. Just take a deep breath of air, and 1, 2, 3 to 10, you begin to focus again, and though time flies, we'll have enough to realize this bigger than the both of us.